episode with Reinforce the Horse.
Reinforce the horse.
This morning I'm reinforcing my horse. Hope you all are doing well. So what did you want to talk about this morning?
I didn't have anything in particular,
I didn't know that.
but I think for those of you listening on the podcast, right now things are a little bit different for us. We've got the horses out and we're brushing them. And maybe we talk about brushing and companionship and that sort of stuff. And kind of like what we're doing and why we think it makes sense.
Okay.
Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds like a plan.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll start. I have Willow out with me, and so both of the horses, neither of them are on the halter or on, they don't have any sort of tack on them at all. And for us, this just kind of exercises their freedom of choice and allows them to do what they want, when they want, where they want. And we think that it's really cool that they just stay with us. And yeah, we are treating them here and there. I think that has a little bit to do with it, but in all reality, these two love to be brushed. Do you want to talk a little bit about what they do when you let them out in the morning?
Oh yeah, so typically we will brush them not in the location that we're at right now. We will brush them just outside of their pens next to our feed shed. And I've been coming up just before sunrise in the morning for a while now. And they both will come out to the brushing areas. We leave these mats. If you guys can see, we have pieces of doormat on the ground, and we've taught them to stand on the mat essentially when they want to be brushed. And so they'll walk over to the mat and just stand on the mat and ask to be brushed when I'm asking them to go on a walk in the morning.
It's a really reinforcing thing, and we've come to the conclusion that it not only feels good to them, but it emotionally and physically, but it feels good to them all over the place. They're getting to hang out with us, which they absolutely adore. I think that the brushing process feels good to them. They've both shown us that they're really calm when we're brushing. They're getting reinforced with the treats. There's so many reinforcers going on just right now. And so I think that they get a kick out of that.
And am I correct in my thinking? A lot of the grooming process relates to horseback riding and making sure the tack is, the saddle and such is on properly, and there's not dirt, rubbing on their skin and their fur and that sort of thing. Am I right on that?
Yeah. A lot of the times.
So we brush for different reasons. Of course, we want their fur to be nice and shiny. It seems like every time we brush them and get them nice and shiny, they walk over and go roll. And what I found just in brushing them together, they seem to show their enjoyment of it together, and they're much calmer.
It's as if we were all a herd and we're just sitting there preening each other. If you're watching on the YouTube channel, you see Willow just kind of bringing her head over and on top of me. I think that she's purely just showing me affection. She's treating me as if I was another horse. She hasn't actually started preening me yet, but I think that she will eventually. She's a really sweet, they love to be brushed. And I feel like the brushing process also helps, like you mentioned, helps build trust and communication, because a lot of you horse people may know, when brushing, it's a good time to observe and see if they have any issues going on, if they're in pain anywhere, if they're not acting normal, maybe they're sick. And so it's a good way to just kind of connect with their bodies too.
That's a really good point. And I find just that connection point. So We've talked about communication, not control.
Yeah.
And clearly there's no control going on here. Arguably, one could say, having some treats available is a form of control, and I would agree with that.
Oh yeah.
Um, they do know that they could go wherever they want. But the brushing process is reinforcing in and of itself because it feels so good to them.
Yeah.
What are some other things that you notice as part of the brushing process that may be a little abnormal?
Well, I
realized that
they...
we wouldn't necessarily pick up from having them tied at the hitching post.
So I feel like they are a lot more like they want to be brushed. And I'm kind of relating this to my first horse and my experience with Mocha. She, she was expensive, but she did not like to be brushed. Like she really didn't like to be brushed. She had her moments where she would, tolerate it, and she'd be like, well, that kind of feels nice, I guess. But most of the time, given the choice to eat or be brushed, Mocha would have chosen to eat or simply just stand in her pen. Mocha was not the type that really enjoyed being brushed. And for the record, I really don't think Cody was either before you started really making it a good thing. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, having him tied up at the hitching post, which I haven't in months, if not going on more than a year.
It's been almost, no, I think it's been over a year.
Yeah, so I haven't had him tied at the hitching post. Even the last time the farrier came, he was at liberty. And I find when I tie him up at the hitching post, he just goes into shutdown mode immediately. He doesn't really want anything to do with me. He doesn't really want anything to do with life in general. He just kind of taps out.
And I feel like when they were tied up, like they're a lot more, like they move around a lot more, as if to say, I really don't like that. I really don't like that. And with some training methods, you train them, like stand there even if you don't like it, kind of thing.
Well, and to be fair, there's some decent reasons to tie the horse.
Oh yeah.
Especially like if we're out and about or on a trip or something like that, or camping maybe.
And it can be dangerous if they're moving all over the place all the time.
Right. And so there's a method that I came across recently, tying where you basically just loose hang the rope up over a tree. And so then they get the benefit of being with that natural tree. And they also, get the benefit of just hanging out there as opposed to being tied forcefully.
Yeah. Man, that's really cool. I've never heard of that one before.
Yeah.
But I feel like, R2, and not to say that there are times where they have a ton of energy and they both just want to run and it's like brushing and they're both, just kind of like meh. But quite recently they've shown that they actually want to be brushed rather than go on a walk. Whereas Mocha, as I was talking, like she really didn't like being brushed and she really didn't like to be touched very much. I think both of our two are like super affectionate horses. And maybe it's just them. I don't know. Let us know if it's your horses too, because I'm actually kind of interested in that. We've thought a lot. Are we just lucky with R2?
Right.
So it'd be kind of interesting. How many of you guys think that you guys got lucky with your horses?
Yeah,
Let us know we're not alone.
And for those of you actually watching on YouTube, give us some feedback. Just shoot in the comments. Do you think we're crazy and our horses are not showing us affection and love, or are they clearly showing affection and love right now? It's a really good thing. And if you could see, like, Cody is doing like a little dance, and I don't know if you could see on the camera what his hooves are doing, but he's trying to stand perfectly in line on the mat. Sometimes he's a little off the mat, and I'm okay with that. But it's almost a performance when they brush, or when we brush. And it's like he feels good about performing properly. So he knows what I'm asking him to do. Just stand here. Sometimes they get a little impatient, like Willow just did, and she was pawing. But that's just the way I interpret it. They're just saying, "Hey, acknowledge me."
Yeah.
And am I doing a good job? And they're kind of questioning it. And then, of course, I want to get reinforced for that. So.
And there, I'm actually redirecting her and asking her to target my hand, and coming back with the brush, just kind of letting her know that I'm reinforcing her for being brushed. And right now, I'm just kind of giving her a little bit of a jackpot for brushing her so she doesn't get impatient. She gets really agitated when I'm paying attention to something else. Like, I found, like, when I'm talking or paying attention to something else, she's just like, dude, like, I exist right in front of you, pay attention to me.
And so right there with Cody, he took a couple steps backwards, and typically that's him like saying no thank you. So he's got a couple no thank yous depending on what we're doing. And so as I move further back toward his rear, brushing him, and he steps back, he's basically saying no thank you. I don't really want to be brushed back there right now. And I'm okay with that. And so then I just kind of take a step backwards and let him reset. And then I'll treat him once he gets back to the mat and he's reset back on the mat like he just is. And so that to me is just, he's communicating with me and I'm communicating with him, and we just keep that flow going.
So do you feel like brushing him helps build your guys' connection for, say, riding or even just walking around the track?
I think so. The funny thing is, though, that it seems like they're loving being brushed so much that right now in our training regimen, like, it seems like they just want to be brushed and they don't want to do anything else. So
yeah, they really
if you guys have any suggestions on maybe improving upon that, because that's something I see I can use some improvement, is how to get them more motivated to do some exercise.
Seriously.
Another good part about brushing is just like Alyssa kind of mentioned, for me, it helps me become much more aware of how the horse is feeling, and both physically, mentally, and even spiritually and emotionally. They really want to, or they really demonstrate quite well how they're feeling just by the brushing process.
Yeah, that's very true. And for that, like, I think that the brushing process is really cool because I love brushing. I could stand there and brush all day and be perfectly content. And for the record, I think Willow would be perfectly fine with that. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes on during the brushing process. I mean, Willow she's had a bit of a light stomach ache lately, and it hasn't been, terrible. Nope, it hasn't been colic. I think it's ulcers. But I mean, through brushing, I can evaluate how much pain she's in, and just kind of like how she's feeling. Usually, when I brush, she'll let me know if she's got any stones in her hooves, which is really cool. Like, she'll actually lean on one hoof more than the other if she's got stones. So I mean, it helps me evaluate her hooves. I can usually tell when brushing, like, if she has a ton of energy or if it's just, if she's having a bit of a chill day. It's really cool. Just a way to really connect with them. And I think that they can connect with us too. Because when we're brushing, doing something that I think, believe it or not, the brushing process, we have to be very in tune with them too. And ourselves.
Yeah, I noticed just a difference today a little bit, like mainly with Willow. She seems
very antsy.
She seems more antsy, and and whatnot. And
A
that,
lot of that I think is because I'm not putting my full attention on her.
right, and we're, talking to the camera and, not being 100%
My brain's
present.
going. My brain is going. And
Yeah,
she's like,
so
no.
our thinking minds increase their activity, and then they do as well.
Yeah.
One thing I've been getting really interested in lately is trying to emulate what they would do in the wild. And even though Cody isn't from the wild, but he does have that innate instinct in him, to some degree anyway. And I noticed just observing him when he's out grazing. So we have a lot of these like yucca cactus. I think they're a cactus, but they're a desert plant. And I don't know if you can see them in the background, but they kind of look like I don't know what do they look like.
They look like the closest that I can think of are like super hairy aloe vera plants. Like they just like I can't really think of.
Yeah, but a
anything.
lot of people not in the desert won't even know what aloe vera is.
They look like they're like green, like pine trees or palm trees. Pine trees. They look kind of like palm trees. Like
palm trees, but they're like sticky, yuppie palm trees.
Yeah.
Anyways, so I've noticed that Cody will go to the yucca, and they're really sharp, pointy on the end. They're like needle sharp. But he'll very gently put his face on the yucca, and he'll brush his face with the yucca branches. And so I observed that and saw that happening. And so I'll emulate that with the brush, and he just totally loves it. Like I'm doing it right now. I'll just like put the brush up on his face and go real lightly, and he'll like come into it, and his eyes get real soft, and he just really loves that. So that's one of the things that I think is really important and cool to do, is to just hang out with your horse and observe how they act when they are at liberty, say, in pasture or whatever.
Yeah.
And how can you bring those aspects back into different training and grooming and riding activities?
Yeah, like your daily activities. I saw something online at one point, and it was like, just take a minute to spend time with your horse and do it for 3 consecutive days in a row, and see if your relationship builds just after, like an hour of just observing and spending time with them without any expectations.
And brushing is certainly part of that. And I've also found, just taking them out to like their favorite spot on the land and just letting them be, and maybe grabbing a book and just sitting under a tree and reading it while they do their horse thing. That builds a lot of trust and confidence, and it's relationship building.
Yeah.
They like it. And so then when we bring them back to a more controlled environment where we're asking them to stand and be present, then they're much more willing and able to do that.
Yeah.
So what are some of the brushing techniques that you like?
So I like to usually I'll start with like the metal curry comb or the rubber curry comb. So what is it? It's this one and this one here. So I'll start with like, one of these two, and I'll brush her down, and then I'll use the other one.
So for those of you just listening on the podcast, the metal comb is like this round metal tooth looking thing, and you got to be careful with it because it could scrape their skin. So it's a real soft, gentle pressure with that one, but it does help bring the dirt and loose fur from the undercoat. And then
as does the rubber curry comb.
The rubber curry comb, same thing. It's got some pointy rubber on it, so you got to be gentle with it. And you can use that. And then what do you like to do after that?
I like to use this bristle brush, and it's just like it's got kind of hard bristles, but it gets everything from like kind of just underneath the surface. And so that's kind of nice. It feels, for me, it's like don't know, like a soft hairbrush. And then after that, I like to use a rag. And the rag, it's really cool. It's like putting Vaseline on them because you like, what is it? You get like their skin oils. And you practically just like rub it all over their body and they get all shiny.
Yeah, without
Like,
any water or any chemicals or additives or anything like that. So yeah, we go with like the curry brushes, a hard bristle brush, and then a softer bristle brush, and then a rag. And just by the time they're done, they're like, I like to say they're like sports cars.
Yeah.
Because they're all nice and shiny and
then of course they go and roll,
yeah.
I love brushing them.
Yeah, it's definitely like one of my favorite things to do. And it goes back to like, you know, when we first got into horses, and that's when I decided to buy Mocha. I was just standing there brushing her.
Yeah.
It's like we had some connection at that point, and so it's a pretty awesome, memorable experience for me as well.
Yeah.
Just from where my horsemanship journey began.
Yeah. And I remember that day like it was yesterday. We had Mocha tied up at the trailer, and man, like she was going to sleep. I think that was the best brushing session Mocha had ever had.
Right.
I mean, both before and after like actually purchasing her. That was like the most emotional, and she like told my dad, I kid you not, she told my dad, you're gonna buy me now. Like,
Yeah.
you're gonna buy me. And because she was like asleep and he was crying and he was just like, all right, I'll buy the horse. And I just kind of looked at him like, I'm dreaming. I'm definitely dreaming. And kind of startled Mocha.
And clearly I'm a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
Just broken down in tears.
And Mocha
for no
did
reason.
this like, she took a big deep breath, licked her lips, and then cocked her back foot, remember?
Yep.
And she was just like, yep, that's what I needed to hear. It was probably the best.
And that really started our journey. And as we've mentioned before, we're working on a series to tell stories about how horses have changed lives. And we have ours coming up and a few other guests. And if you would like to be a guest on that show or on our show and to tell your story about how horses have changed your life, you can go to reinforcethehorse.com, and there's a link right up at the top that will allow you to schedule an interview session with us. And if you're in our area in southern Arizona, or if you would just like to be here, you could come out and we could interview live if you'd like with the horses.
You could also connect with us on our Reinforce the Horse group on Facebook, and we are on YouTube. The channel right now is called Alyssa Mustangs, but we are changing that to Reinforce the Horse. So you can find like our training journey, primarily mine and Willow's. However, we are going to be putting some videos of Cody and my dad as well. So yeah, thanks so much for watching and listening to this episode of Brushing with Willow and Cody, and we will see you guys next week with another episode.
Have a good day, guys.
Bye.